Good morning, everyone. My name is Nagarjuna. I've been into SAP for almost 13 years now. Just to introduce about myself, I started my career as an ABAPer and moved on to BW. And from last 4 years, I'm into HANA space. So that is a very brief introduction about me. Coming to today's session. Today's session will be for 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes, and another 30 minutes we'll have question and answer session. So I'll just start with the demo now, and all the question and answers will conduct at the end of the class. So first of all, we'll start with what is SAP HANA. HANA stands for High Performance Analytic Appliance. Now when we say high performance, what does this mean? I'll try to explain in very simple terms. For example, let's take a simple table. This table consists of 4 columns. For example, like who are the customers, what products they are purchasing, what's the amount, and what's the quantity. A table with 4 columns, and the volume of data that we have in this table, is around 2 trillion records. A simple table having 2 trillion records, and the kind of questions that we are asking on the table are also very simple. Now, I'm trying to ask a very simple question on this table is, who are my top 5 customers? So when I'm trying to ask this very simple question on the very large data volume that we have around 2 trillion records. Now, in order to answer this question on such a data volume, now if this table and data is on a database which is MS SQL. Now let's say the database is MS SQL, and in this database we have a table and we have 2 trillion records in this table. And the question is very simple, only 5 records. In order to get 5 records out of 2 trillion records in MS SQL database, approximately to answer that question, it takes around 8 hours. Now, if the same question, same table, and same volume of data, if we have in HANA, the same volume of data that we have in HANA, it takes less than 6 seconds. Now, why is that MS SQL take 8 hours, whereas HANA only takes 6 seconds? Now, what is the reason behind it? HANA being so high performance, and only in the matter of 6 seconds it can answer such a volume of data. In such a volume of data, it can answer this question. Now, what are the reasons behind it? Now, the reasons are, now HANA, why it is high performance? The reasons are, the first reason is it's an in-memory DB, in-memory database. The second one, it's a column-oriented DB. And third one is it's a massively parallel processing of data. It does massive parallel processing of data. Now let's understand Why? Due to these three reasons, it gives extremely high performance by just taking 6 seconds to answer that particular question. Now let's see what are in-memory databases. What are in-memory databases? I'll take a simple computer. Let's take an example of simple computer architecture wherein CPU, you have RAM, and the third one is disk. Now, usually if you see databases like MS SQL, for databases like MS SQL, the primary way to store data for these databases is always on disk. So the table I was talking about is basically storing its content as well as the container. The primary way to store data is on disk. But for HANA, the primary way to store data is on memory. Now, what is the reason that SAP want to shift the container which is made up of iron plate? They're basically storing this table which is made up of iron plate. The same content they want to store in a different container which is made up of transistors and capacitors. Now, why is it SAP thought to basically separate this content from a container called disk, which is made up of iron plate, and put the same content into a different container which is made up of transistors and capacitors? Now, what is the reason behind it? The primary reason, RAM is 100,000 times faster in processing data. That is the first reason. And the second reason is whenever we keep data close to the CPU. Now, when a user is trying to ask a question, it goes to the CPU, goes to the memory, and get back the answer. Now, previously, when the user asks the question, goes to the CPU, go to the memory, and to the disk, again back to memory, and to the CPU, and to the front end. So, why in-memory databases have higher performance? The main reason is RAM is 100,000 times faster in processing data. That is the first reason. And the second reason is data is kept close to the CPU. So that's why in-memory databases have extremely high performance. Now, when we say in-memory databases, a database is nothing but collection of tables in RAM, in memory. So due to first reason, we have RAM is faster and data is kept close to CPU. So whenever user is trying to ask questions, because data is kept close to the CPU, it's faster to the front end. Now let's come to the second one. Now what are column-oriented DBs? And why does column-oriented DBs have extremely high performance? Let us see this reason. Let us see this reason. Now the question here is why column-oriented DBs have higher performance. Now usually data is stored in row-oriented fashion. So let us take the same table that we taken in the first slide. Let me copy this. So let's take this as row orientation and this one as column orientation. Now what's the difference between storing data in row and storing data in column? Now let's say I try to insert a record, and the record consisting of values customer C1, product M01, amount is 100 and quantity is 10. So we have an insert over here. So the same data, when I insert it into the table, it basically, as you know, it inserts into a file. The data is stored in the form of file. So when I insert an entry in the table, the data is stored something like this. So the entry is stored like this. And if you also have a second entry, let me also have a second entry, C2 M02 200 and 20. So this is the second entry. Now I'm trying to ask a question on this table, a simple question. The question is, who is my top customer? This is the question I'm trying to ask on this table. Now in order to get answer for this, so it basically starts the journey like this. First it goes to C1 M01 100 10, C2 M02 220. So in here you actually have 8 values. In order to get answer for this, it has to scan the entire 8 values and answer back saying that the top customer in here is C2, which is amount is 200. Now based on amount, and basically top customer is C2, which is having 200. So when I'm trying to ask this question, it is trying to scan the entire table. Now my question here was not based on what are my top products, but still in order to go to the next value, it basically cannot jump from C1, it cannot jump 200 and then C2 and 200, because when I'm trying to ask this question, my question is only based on customer but not on product. But still, it has to scan the entire table because it cannot jump. But whereas in a column-oriented DBs, the major advantage in a column-oriented DBs are, let me copy the same data over here. So in a column-oriented DB, the way they store data is something different than row-oriented DBs. Let us see how they store data in a column-oriented DB. Now, in a column-oriented DB, each column is stored in a separate file. Each column is stored in a separate file. So in here you have customer, product, amount, and quantity. So when you store each column in a separate file, you have C1, C2, M01, M02, 100, 200, 10, and 20. Now, when you're trying to ask the same question again, who is my top customer? In this case, it basically goes to customer column, it skips product, then it goes to amount. So if you see here, now in this case, I'm taking a very simple example. We have only 4 columns over here and 2 rows. But especially if you see in SAP, the tables are as large as 100, 200, 300, or even 400 columns. Now, when your question was only based on 2 columns, now why it has to scan the entire table? That is the major disadvantage of row orientation. Now, when your question is based on 2 columns, it has to scan the entire 400 columns to get back the answer for those 2 columns. But in column orientation, it will only go scan those 2 columns that was requested by the user. It doesn't have to scan the entire table. Especially whenever we do analytics, whenever we do some kind of analysis, we most of the time don't try to request the entire content of the table. Probably we'll try to ask simple questions. Sometimes we may ask complex questions. For example, what are my top products? Now, what customers are trying to buy what products? They belong to what region, or from what company code, or what sales organization? Now, probably in a 400 columns at a particular point of time, we may require around 10 to 15 columns, but not more than that, even though it is a complex question. So, what I'm trying to tell over here is, in a column-oriented DB, the major advantage is it only scans the required tables, leaving leaving unwanted columns to be scanned. But in a row orientation, it has to scan the entire table. So that's why column-oriented DBs have extremely high performance rather than row orientation. Because in row, it has to scan the entire data set. In column, it only has to scan the required columns. In the starting of the session, I basically asked a very simple question on a 2 trillion records. To answer the question, who are my top customers? On an MS SQL, it takes 8 hours. The same data to answer in HANA, it takes 6 seconds. Now, why only 6 seconds? Then we try to understand because of these 3 reasons, which is in-memory database, the second reason column-oriented DB, and third one is a massively parallel processing. Why in-memory databases have higher performance? First reason, RAM is faster, data kept close to CPU. The second reason, why column-oriented DBs have higher performance? The reasons are, it only scans the required columns, not the entire table. Now, what is massively parallel processing? Let us try to understand the third reason. What is massively parallel processing? I'll take a very simple example to demonstrate this. Excuse me. Now, let us take a simple table again, or let us take something like this. I'll take a simple example. Now, let us say you have a building, and this building consists of 5 floors. This building consists of 5 floors. Then you have assigned a person to paint the entire building. consisting of 5 floors. So what this person has to do is he has to do sequential processing. So every day he has to come to a floor, paint this and next and so on. So in order to paint 5 floors with a single person, we take 5 days. Now, if the same work is distributed across 5 persons, the same work is distributed across 5 persons. Now each person paint his own area. When the work is distributed, each person will try to process his own work, and at the end of the day they basically assemble the result and tell to the owner that the work is completed. So they distribute the work, process the work, finally assemble the work and give back to the user or the owner. So now the time taken is only 1 day because we have 5 people. So whenever you have more resources to perform the same work, the time taken is less. Now let us compare the same example with the CPU. Especially in HANA, we have CPUs that consists of 4 cores, CPU that consists of 6 cores, 16 cores, 32 cores. It means that each CPU has, for example, a core is nothing but a CPU inside a CPU. A core is nothing but a CPU inside a CPU. So core 1, core 2, core 3 and core 4. Let's say this is a quad core CPU. In a quad core CPU, each core can process 3.2 billion scans per second per core and 15 to 30 million aggregations per second per core. So each CPU basically can scan 3.2 billion scans per second per core and 15 to 30 million aggregations per second per core. Let's take an example. Let's say you have 30 billion records. Now if you have 30 billion records and if you have only one core to process the entire 30 billion records, at an average it takes around 10 seconds. Now when you have the same data in a table, when you try to process, instead of one CPU, if you try to process with 10 CPUs or 10 cores in a CPU, it only takes 1 second. So each core will try to process. So larger tables, now let us say this is a table. Larger tables are broken down into smaller subsets, and each subset of the table is basically arranged, is allocated to a core, and each core can process 3.2 billion scans per second per core and 15 million aggregations per second per core. If you have 30 billion records, one CPU take 10 seconds. The same data when you have 10 cores take only 1 second. Massively parallel processing of data takes less time when you have more resources to complete the same work. So I was only trying to describe, when we say what is HANA, we're talking about high performance. Now why HANA has extremely high performance is due to 3 reasons: in memory, column oriented DB, and third one is massively parallel processing. Now that's why in here, so what is the opposite of in-memory? Opposite of in-memory is disk. Disk is a slower device and memory is a faster device. What is the opposite of column, row? In a row, it has to scan the entire table. In column, it only has to scan the required columns. Sequential processing versus parallel processing. Using less resources, it takes more time to process the same set of data, and the opposite is using more resources, I will take less time to process the same set of data. Massively parallel processing. So that is about high performance of HANA. Now this is what SAP has delivered as a product. SAP basically delivered as a product. Now these are the features of HANA. But what is our role and what we are called and what we do with HANA? So we basically are known as SAP HANA application consultants. So the main role that we have and our role in the market when we apply to the jobs, we basically apply to a role called SAP HANA application consultant. Or also the same role can be also called as SAP HANA modelers. SAP HANA modelers. SAP HANA application consultant or SAP HANA modelers. Now what are our primary activities? The primary activities of this role that we have to perform. The first one is data modeling. The first one is data modeling. Second, data reporting. And third one is data provisioning. Provisioning of data. So these are our three tasks that we perform under this role. Let's say our role is distributed. Let's say our role, we have 100% of work to do. So data modeling is nothing but defining a relationship between tables. How to join these different tables is what most of the time we do in data modeling. In very simple terms. So data modeling consisting of 50% data reporting that HANA application consultant has to perform 20% and data provisioning is 30%. So if you see in the real working environment, now this is known as sidecar scenario. Now this is the HANA data flow architecture. So let me basically draw a data flow architecture. Now this is source system. Where you have data residing in SAP systems and non-SAP. SAP systems, I'll take a product called ECC. ECC stands for Enterprise Core Component or Enterprise Central Component. So this is a product of SAP which is mainly optimized for OLTP, Online Transaction Processing System. A non-SAP, let us take a database like MS SQL. So these are nothing but source systems where the data is originated. Now, the second one here is data provisioning. And here we perform data provisioning. So data provisioning in a very simple terms, how you would like to move data from one system to another system is what we do in data provisioning, or also called as data extraction, extracting of data, or provisioning of data. So as a part of data provisioning, we have different set of tools. For example, like SLT, second one is BODS, third one is DXC. I'll try to explain what are these. And fourth one is Smart Data Access. Now, what are these tools and how these tools are useful when we use HANA? Let us see that. So this is data provisioning is nothing but how you would like to move data from here, and finally the data moves to HANA. Finally the data moves to HANA system. Now first of all, why should we move data from SAP systems and non-SAP systems to HANA? What is the primary reason behind it? Now using data provisioning, why should we move data from source system to target system, which is HANA? Now the main reason is because on the source system side, data is stored on disk. Basically the tables are stored on disk. So for example, if you have a table over here, this table is stored in disk. The data is stored in a row oriented fashion, and the system over here does sequential processing. Now when you move the same content with the container using the data provisioning methods to HANA, so basically when you move this table to HANA, so what's the advantage over here is we achieve extremely high performance. So when you have the table here, the data is stored in memory, column, and parallel processing. So that is the reason we would like to move data from this system to HANA. But how do we move data from this system to HANA is by using data provisioning methods. Now what are the different methods to move data? The first one is SLT. SLT stands for SAP Landscape Transformation. SLT stands for SAP Landscape Transformation. The main use of SLT is to move data in real time. So we would like to move data in real time. So for example, let's say there is a sales order created, or there is a purchase requisition created, or there are posting in financial documents. So whenever a user inserts, updates, or deletes data in the base table, immediately without any latency, the data is available in HANA in real time. For example, if you have created an order 00100, the same 00100 with a very minimum latency in real time it updates to HANA. So that when we are trying to ask questions over here, the questions gets answers from these data that is moved in real time from source to target using SLT. So SLT's main job is to move data in real time with a very minimum latency between source system and target system. So if it changed from 100 to 200, for example, the order value has been changed from 100 to 200. Immediately it updates 00100 to 001 200 immediately with a very minimum latency. Now coming to the second one, I'm only trying to give a very high level overview here. BODS stands for Business Objects Data Services. Now, BODS is basically an ETL tool: extract, transform, and load. You basically extract data, you transform data, and finally load to target system. Now, BODS can get data from SAP systems, it can get data from SAP, or it can get data from non-SAP, and then transform. You can massage data, you can apply transformations to data, you can do data quality, data integration, and finally load data to HANA system. So BODS is batch processing, but SLT is real time. So when we say batch, daily at 8 a.m., let us schedule the job. So whether there are any changes, deletes, updates, or whatever, it only gets data only once. That is nothing but batch. But SLT, whenever there are any changes over here, immediately it gets to the target system. So BODS is batch, SLT is real time. BODS is mainly optimized for complex transformation of data. SLT is optimized for simple transformations of data. It's optimized for. Third one is DXC. DXC stands for Direct Extractor Connection. Now what is the use of DXC is, now before HANA was introduced into market, we had a solution called BW. Now BW stands for Business Warehouse, now which is an SAP product. This is mainly for a data warehousing solution, an enterprise data warehousing solution from SAP. Now this is an OLTP system, but BW is an OLAP system, online analytical processing system. The data which is on the source system, we basically move a copy of data from this system and put it in this system and try to ask questions on BW. It's basically an analytical system where you can try to ask questions. Now that was the scenario before HANA was introduced into market. So this is for the existing customers who are using BW. The importance of DXC, what importance does the DXC play over here is, it can bypass the solution where data is being moved to BW, it can bypass. So using DXC, you can bypass this solution and get the same content into HANA. So where you can ask the same questions over here. So DXC stands for Direct Extractor Connection, primarily optimized to use when you have BW system. When you want to bypass BW system, you can use DXC and get the same data into HANA for extremely high performance reporting. So instead of asking questions over here, we try to ask the same questions and get the answers instantly. High performance. The fourth one is an SDA, which stands for Smart Data Access. Smart Data Access is primarily used in a use case when you want to get data from non-SAP systems. For example, let's say you have a database like MS SQL, Oracle, or Sybase. When you want to get data from these systems, we use Smart Data Access and get data to HANA system. mainly for non-SAP scenarios. Now, when using Smart Data Access, we only access data at the runtime. HANA does not store data physically in memory. It only accesses data in runtime by using a connection. It basically connects to the source and gets data in runtime and produces in the report. But the other tools like SLT, BODS, and DXE, they physically store data over here. They physically store the contents in memory. But in here, it only accesses data on the fly. So a role of SAP HANA consultant is mainly three: data modeling, data reporting, and data provisioning. Data modeling, once you get all relevant data or the required data to HANA, then we start doing data modeling. So when we perform data modeling, oops, when we perform data modeling, there are different modeling techniques we use. We create something called information views. These information views are like attribute views, analytic views, calculation views, the different kinds of data models that we create in HANA. And once you create these data models in HANA Studio, so this is basically known as HANA Studio, where you can create data models. And finally, all these models you can present to the end user. And the end user will basically ask questions on these data models. Now, this is nothing but a presentation layer. On top of HANA, you have a solution which is known as BOBI, which is known as Business Objects, Business Intelligence, or the third-party reporting tools like Tableau, TIBCO Spotfire. So these are all the presentation layer where the user can access these tools and access data from the underlying HANA database. This is mainly the presentation of data, how you would like to present data, rich in visualization. This is mainly for data modeling, and here mainly for data provisioning, how you would like to move data, how you would like to define relationship between tables, and how we would like to present data in BOBI. So as a part of this course, we are going to learn different topics relevant for data modeling, data reporting, and data provisioning. So the course content over here is, let me show you the course content. The course content that we are going to cover in here. So what is the architecture of SAP HANA? What's row store? We see in depth what is a row store, what is a column, different database engines in HANA, what are different data modeling techniques, what is the reporting architecture, administration. Now again, in modeling, so these are very high level I've given over here, very high level. So in here, we see what is an attribute view. In data modeling, what are analytic views, calculation views, best practices in creating information views, performance optimization, currency conversions, variables in HANA, how to import metadata from source system to target system using bots, BODS, exporting of models. You would like to export from development to quality and quality to production, how we can do lifecycle management. In HANA, you have a language called SQL script, how to use SQL script, and calculation engine functions, how we can write database procedures. how to create hierarchies, parent and child relationships, restricted measures, calculated measures, what are the different kinds of joins that are available in HANA, like referential join, what is the text join, inner join, right outer join, what is cardinality, auto documentation. Coming to the reporting part, we are going to see integration of different BOBI reporting tools, like what is a web intelligence, how it can get integrated with HANA, Design Studio, Lumira, analysis for Office, analysis for OLAP, Explorer, Crystal Reports Enterprise, how these different set of tools basically integrate to HANA. That's on the reporting side. Now coming to the, as I divided this data modeling, data reporting, and data provisioning. So as a part of data provisioning, we see what is SLT, how we can configure SLT, what are the different roles available in SLT, what does an admin perform, what does the application consultant perform, different issues that we encounter. Coming to BODS, different kinds of transformations in BODS, configuration of DXE, how we can use DXE, flat file, how to import files to HANA. In BODS, you have two UIs, Workbench and Designer. What's the difference in both? And how we can use BODS to create data stores, configure data services, job server. And then we move on to the administration. How to administer HANA, how to take backup and recovery, installation of HANA, how to install different drivers, what is multi-version concurrency control, how to handle cold backup, hot backups, what is a persistency layer. Then we see user management and security, how to create users roles, privileges, how we can restrict data. So we basically restrict what user is supposed to see, what data is what we see in the user management and security. Now in this course we are going to do end-to-end projects. So two end-to-end projects we are going to do. One is we're going to do on COPA, controlling profitability analysis. The second one we are going to do is on sales and distribution. So I'm going to explain you completely end-to-end projects, that is on FICO, financials and controlling, and sales and distribution. Those projects are actually done on the one project I've done in UK and the other project I've done in Riyadh. So coming to the last one, how HANA can be integrated with BW, which is known as BW powered by HANA. Overview of BW for participants who are new to BW. I'm going to explain what is BW, what is BW powered by HANA, and what's the difference between BW on a non-SAP database versus BW on HANA database. What are in-memory cubes, DSOs? What is a transient provider? So this is the course content that we have. And apart from this, so every day I'm going to record all the videos, and the videos will be provided to you on a daily basis. The second one is we're going to provide all the latest materials from SP9. So HANA SP9 is the latest one. And third thing is we'll give system access for 3 months. And the fourth one is whenever you try to do exercises or something, when you're getting stuck up, we have a technical team who is going to support you from backend. And system related issues, we also have a technical team who work from morning 8 a.m. IST till 8 p.m. IST. So most of the participants who have taken the course has cleared the certification. So most of the participants got more than 90%. And I'm into teaching field for almost, so I basically started, I'm the first certified application consultant in HANA in Asia Pacific. I've done my course in SAP Malaysia. That was the first course that was introduced in 2011. I was the first person to take and got certified in 2011. And I've taken more than, so I'm an SAP trainer. I teach in SAP India and various SAP education centers. Along with that, I have a passion for teaching. I teach in the morning and at night, and usually the other times I work. So that's a brief introduction. That's a brief introduction about me, and my name is Nagarjuna. And if you have any questions, please ask me. And the course will be for, the other thing is course will be for 40 to 45 days, and each day will have a 1 hour session. And after the session, you may basically ask questions. Now you can type in your questions in the chat box, and then I will try to answer all your questions that you may have. Yes, Punita, we will cover the ABAP integration with HANA as well. When we see the data modeling, I'm going to cover that part as well. Please type in your questions. One minute. So people may ask questions or raise their hands. Participants may ask questions or raise their hands. The second question over here is from Rajeshwari. Thank you for the demo session. My question may be insane, but would like to know, is there any scripting language required at any point of working in HANA? Yes, it is required, but HANA is mainly based on model to code approach. So let's say the code's content is 100%. Now, even in real working environment, we don't do much scripting. The reason being, all the tools have been given by SAP. All the requirement, most of the requirement can be achieved using graphical data modeling. So 5% to 10% you'll have scripting, and that's also SQL, which is very, very easy. So HANA is mainly designed. So previously things were designed based on code to model, but HANA is based on model to code. We generate models, system generates the code. So before we generate code, and based on this code, the models are generated. So HANA is purely based on model to code approach. This I'm going to cover in detail all the sessions. So every day we'll take a topic and go deeper into that particular topic before we go to the next topic. So currently, when I started my career in 2011, there are very little projects in 2011. Probably we can hardly see in Asia Pacific 10 or 15 consultants, but now you see A lot of consultants in HANA space and a lot of projects. There are around, currently, if you see, there are around 7,000 implementations. Now, when I started my career, there was only two or three. And one of the first client implemented HANA was GSK, GlaxoSmithKline in UK. So always, the first will always benefit in terms of product. And also, then it was only two, but now we have 8,000, almost 8,000 customers we have in HANA. So basically, if you see in SAP, SAP completely want to transform all its product portfolios using the HANA platform. SAP almost have around 2,85,000 customers. Now in 2,85,000 customers, if you see, 8,000 customers are already using HANA. So now you see how much potential is there, and there is going to lot of demand in market in future. A lot of demand will be there, especially for HANA. And tremendous effort that SAP is putting to move all the non-SAP databases to SAP HANA. So next question was, if I want to learn HANA, then do I have to know BOBI? No. BOBI is completely different than what HANA is. BOBI is done by a different consultant altogether, who is known as Business Objects Consultant. But in this course, we mainly focus on HANA. So our primary skill set is mainly dealing with SAP HANA, but the secondary skill set is BOBI. So we are not going to apply jobs in BOBI, but most of the time our focus would be on the HANA system, because we are actually projecting ourselves as SAP HANA application consultants. S4 HANA is business suite powered by HANA, where you have, so previously SAP has something called business suite, and again inside the business suite you have different components like ECC, customer relationship management, supply chain management, that is on the ABAP application layer. So a participant's question is, what is S4 HANA? So SAP basically operates most of its business processes on the ABAP application layer. ABAP stands for Advanced Business Application Programming. So most of the time they operate there. But now they incorporated the entire business logic at its database in order to achieve extremely high performance. So HANA is basically an in-memory column, parallel processing, can balance between transaction processing as well analytical processing. It can do text analysis, geospatial analysis. It can process structured, semi-structured, unstructured data. So HANA does all these things. It can do predictive analytics. So what I'm trying to say over here is, so S4 HANA is mainly focusing on the business suite powered by HANA, means on the transaction processing side, mainly on the business processes. So SAP has its core components like logistics, finance, HR, human resource, and they also have new dimensional products like customer relationship management, supply chain management, product lifecycle management. So that is nothing but which is known as S4 HANA. Always I suggest, so HANA and S4 HANA are completely different. When you do when you do a course in HANA, you're going to apply for jobs called SAP HANA application consultants, especially participants who are from non-SAP or from SAP. First, You have to complete this, and then if you want, if you can wish in future, because S4 HANA is recently introduced around 6 months back, so it will take time to penetrate into market. It will take time. It's going to take another 1 year or so to penetrate into market. So currently you have around 300 clients in S4 HANA. 300 clients are there, and by day, it will increase. So in here, we are going to also see the installation part. I'm also going to show you the installation, how to install SAP HANA. I'm going to show that part as well. So I'm going to provide all the certification material. Like we have SAP standard materials like HA100, HA300, HA350, HA900. All the latest materials I'm going to provide. So we're also going to see how to integrate SAP HANA with the FICO. We're going to cover that part as well. So for HANA, it's not necessary we need to know BOBI. As I just explained, BOBI is only a front end, but most of the time we spend our time at the back end, which is SAP HANA at the database level. So we'll see all the features of the latest versions as well. Yes, everything will be provided by me. All the technical and functional will be provided by me. Everything will be provided by me. No need of SQL. So there is no prerequisite to learn HANA. So just come with an empty mind. So every day we'll have around 40 to 45 sessions. So I'm going to teach from basics till complex scenarios. So from the fundamentals right to the complex scenarios, everything will be covered in this course. And also we're going to cover two end-to-end projects on sales and distribution and financials, because those are the core components of SAP. Yes, please. Any questions anyone may have? Any other questions, please? Yes, please. So it's a 5 days a week session. So every day we'll have 1 hour, and then it'll be from Monday to Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday we don't have sessions. So probably participants who are working, can utilize the time for their practice. So at least for a week you require around 6 to 7 hours to basically complete your exercises. I'm going to give you assignments. So you can keep around 7 to 10 hours a week to learn the course. Yes, we'll also see Fury integration with HANA. We're going to see that part as well. So coming to the session timings, I think the management will inform you about the timings. So probably it should be on the morning, but we'll get a confirmed email on that. Yes, I'm going to give you the system access. So system access you all will basically access in remote desktop. So it's something like this. So if you go to start and you have to type in MSTSC. So if you go to the MSTSC and then you have to type in the IP address, you have to give the provide username and password and click on connect. So we're going to access using the remote desktop and the access will be for 3 months. So once you enter into the remote desktop, here you see HANA Studio. Just double click on this. So every participant will have their own user ID and password. And all the systems that belong to SAP integration like BOBI, HANA, BODS, DXC, all the systems that you can access. So all the systems are integrated. So anyway, we're going to see in tomorrow's session in detail about how we can access different systems in our landscape in tomorrow's session. I'll show you in tomorrow's session. So this is the way we can access the HANA system. Any other questions, please? If any sessions you miss or you're not able to understand, always we have these batches regularly on a daily basis. One batch is on the morning and the other one in the late night. So already the late night batch is coming to an end. Almost we have another 7 to 8 sessions is coming to an end. So we just started with the morning session. So always you're very flexible because also you have recordings to hear, and also if you want to take a break and then probably due to some reason you can also continue the sessions, but you have to just inform the management, just write an email whenever you take a break and then they will consider you. So late night means something like around, now this batch is only scheduled in the morning. So in Indian time using we have the batch at 8 a.m. IST, 8 p.m. IST in Indian time. So whatever the logics you want to write, you can use SQL script to write the logic. All the logics can be written using SQL script. The batch timings, Yugender, Mr. Yugender, are you there? So Yugender is our training coordinator. So he'll be the training coordinator. Yugender, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So are you planning this batch in the morning? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So Mohammed, the batch will be on the morning time, but I think you'll officially get an email on this.
Yes, 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 sir. I will discuss with him, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, please? For another 5 minutes, we'll have these questions. So one question from Praveen Kumar. If you put data in RAM which is not permanent, correct, does it still store DB into disk, correct? Yes, perfectly. Now, especially in HANA, the primary way to store data is always in memory. But obviously, we can only store data in memory permanently when you have a power supply to the memory. If you don't have a power supply, the data gets lost. So that is the reason you have a concept called persistency layer. A persistency layer will take a backup of data that is existing on memory. So it basically takes a copy of data which is in memory and keeps in disk. Any other questions, please? So actually, I'm not the person to discuss on the batch because Mohammed. The main reason is I think Yugender will discuss on it because he's the person who is going to coordinate and decide on the batches. So Yugender, please kindly request you talk with Mohammed and inform the appropriate time to him to
Sure, sir.
Mohammed.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Okay, and so whatever knowledge that you require in SQL, I'm going to teach in this course. Whatever is required in SQL, we're going to teach in here. Just we're going to cover the architecture as well. What is the architecture on HANA? What are the different servers we have, like index server, name server, pre-processor server, access engine? All these are different kinds of servers we have in HANA. We're going to discuss in detail about them. All this will be discussed. Even topics around S4 HANA and BW integration with HANA are also covered here. So S4 HANA I'm going to cover in here itself, not the entire course, but introduction to S4 HANA and BWBI as well. The integration with BWBI also will be covered. Yes, we also have NetWeaver 7.4 ABAP integrated with HANA. So we have the NetWeaver 7.4 integration with HANA. So if you go to the system and then let me log into the SAP. Just a participant wants to see the system, what version we have, the latest one, which is 7.4 NetWeaver. We have the NetWeaver 7.4, which is on the, you see the database is HDB, which is the HANA database. Any other questions, please? Yes, we're going to cover the integration of BW and BI, like what are transient providers, how we can use different data models from BW to HANA, how data models of HANA can be used in BW. All these are going to cover in here. They will be shared with you. All the recordings will be shared with you. They are mobile compatible. You can play in mobile or whenever you have free time. In any device, you can play these videos. These videos will be supporting in all the devices. Okay, then thank you so much everyone to attend this demo. And Yugender, you have any questions? Uh, Yugender, you may have any questions for me?
Sir, shall we conduct class tomorrow? Tomorrow Sunday, if possible. I can discuss with students and I can update you again.
Okay.
If possible,
Oh,
we can conduct.
okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. BOBA knowledge is not required. BOBA knowledge is not at all required to learn HANA. I'm going to cover all the integration part. Whatever is required for BOBI, I'm going to cover in this course as well. But it's not mandatory to have, but good to have. Because there are a lot of projects where they don't use BOBI at all. Because they may be using a third-party reporting tools like Tableau, TIBCO Spotfire, IBM Cognos, without using BOBI. Because HANA can also talk to the third-party reporting tools. Okay, you can also attend tomorrow's session. Yeah, tomorrow's session also you can attend, Mohammed. Thank you so much, everyone. And so I think tomorrow
Thank you, sir.
also the session is on the same time at 6 a.m. in the morning, IST. Okay, thank you so much and have a good night and good morning. Thank you.